Welcome to the podcast. It's me, Jon Savage. No mess, no fuss. Let's get into it. So I've been getting lots and lots of messages, particularly in 2023, about podcasting, help with stuff and understanding it. And then I got this one from a very experienced streamer, which was like, okay, maybe I've got to slow down a little bit. What is a podcast? He asked me, what's the difference between a podcast and a blog? Okay, so let's do a basic 101 just to get started and make it really easy. So all a podcast is, well, historically defined as a digital piece of audio. So I reckon about for the last decades, up until about 18 months ago, 2 years ago, a podcast meant a piece of audio content. It still does to a certain extent, but I'll explain what is different about it. And what is it? It can be anything. So it can be a conversation, it can be a news item, it can be a piece of something you're interested in talking about. It doesn't matter what that audio is. It's not music, and I'll explain a little bit about that in a minute. Why that's not. There's a whole licenses and usages problem with it. But we'll just start. It's a piece of audio content. Usually what makes a podcast is that it's series, so it could either be weekly, monthly, daily. It could be part of a season, so there's lots of episodes, usually not just one piece of content. And the big sort of thing that has happened in the last 18 months is that video is also considered a podcast as well now. So most podcasts are considered audio and video together, often like on a YouTube or a separate channel. So that is a podcast. What's the difference between a vlog and a podcast? Very little, except for whereas a vlog goes only onto sort of YouTube, an audio podcast has what is called an RSS feed. Now, RSS feeds are these like magical little pieces of coding that actually distribute podcasts across to all of the Apples and the Spotifys and what all those things are. And what is funny about an RSS feed is it's got this very technical term, but what it actually means is really simple syndication. It's a really simple syndication feed, RSS. That's what it actually stands for. And all that is again, is a piece of coding that takes your podcast, your piece of audio, and distributes it everywhere. So that's what makes a podcast. It's a piece of content, usually that is regular, that goes out on audio and video. What should your podcast be about? Can be anything. It doesn't matter about length, doesn't matter about format. Quality is important, but we'll talk a little bit more about that later. And that's all it really is. Nothing more complicated than that. It can be just you doing news for 5 minutes every day or news updates. It can be you just talking about pigs in space for an hour once a week, and that's all it really is. It's important just to redefine that podcasting is now video as well as audio. I don't know if that's an official definition, but it's apparent that that's the industry that is moving in. So if you have a podcast that is most likely going to have its primary destinations as an audio feed across digital media like Apple and Spotify, or it's going to have a presence on YouTube. Could even just be a logo on YouTube with the audio running, but as video is becoming more and more important, people are doing that. Last piece about a podcast, why is it not music? There is an exception to the rule, which is quite groundbreaking, which I can talk about later, about Black Star, who released an album as a podcast. That was really much a rebellion against the music industries. The problem with music in podcasts is that podcasts are not licensed for music. You don't have the rights to actually play somebody's music in your podcast, so you can't. So the music that you use on a podcast has to be either royalty-free or something you have a license for, or something you've created. Music as a bed or as a segment of it. One of the things that is sort of a gray area is whether you can use a piece of music, and some people say as long as it's under 30 seconds. There's no law about that. You can't technically use any of it, but the algorithms tend to not flag music in podcasts that are under 20 seconds. What a lot of people do is they talk over some of the music to confuse the algorithm, but technically, if you're going to be totally legal, you can't use other people's music in your podcast. So it's often just talking or a media that isn't music. That is everything to do with what is a podcast. Feel free to send me a comment or a question if there's something I haven't answered. Look in the bio or the description. And if you want to book an hour with me, I'm now doing paid booking sessions, 1 hour, everything you need to know about podcasting. And I can help with how to do it, monetization, technical gear, strategy, all of those sorts of things. Otherwise, just subscribe and have fun. I'm out.
Oh, madness, my friend.